All right, everybody, we are back again for another edition of the College Football Focus podcast. Today is Wednesday, August the 13th, and I am joined once again by the always jovial and cordial Mark Podolsky wearing his
Yes.
Roll Tide hat today from the spacious outside of his lovely Poto Palace up in
You notice you notice I'm also wearing Notre Dame
oh,
shirt.
there you go, Fighting Irish.
So that might be my college football playoff national championship game prediction. Who knows?
It may be. We will do that next week. So anyway,
Oh, we will.
to, huh?
Oh, we will.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it at some point before the season starts. It doesn't make
That,
sense to do it once the season gets going.
that's true.
So anyway, a few things have obviously come out since last time we were together, and one of them was the always anticipated Associated Press Top 25. Whatever you think of preseason rankings, they're done obviously to juice the magnitude of the games. And I kind of look at it as, oh, okay, I can see why it's there. I know that you don't love them either. Personally, I've always thought that they should have one poll, then not have another one again for 4 or 5 weeks. But they got to sell games and they got to put eyes on TVs and games make them seem bigger. So
You know
they
what though?
did have,
Hold on.
go
Before you
ahead.
go on, I hate that idea of I'm going to disagree with you. Have a poll at the beginning of the year and then wait. What you said, 3 or 4 weeks, a month, which is fine. But when you have a poll before the season, it's already weighed a certain way with there's bias because we're basing a lot of stuff off last season. And if you want to really go with the clean slate, like you said, if you really want to start with a clean slate, don't have a poll until maybe the non-conference is over. That'd be my opinion. Because I think if you're going to have one at the beginning of the season based off nothing, there are going to be some bias. And granted, there always are bias in these preseason polls. The blue bloods get benefit of the doubt 100% of the time. And schools like, I don't know, we talked about this last show, Arizona State, who kind of came out of nowhere. They got to spend an entire season to get any kind of respect. So in that vein, I think if you're going to wait, just don't even have a preseason poll. I know why we have to have one, right? We got to
Right.
get clicks and we got to make sure people talk about it. But if you truly want to do it the right way, in my opinion, don't have anything until maybe mid-September.
And that would be fine too. And I think it's also how you view the preseason poll. When someone is voting, are they voting for how they think the teams are now? Because you're right, it's just going to be a rehash of the end of last year. But when I do mine, I'm predicting how I think the year is going to go. So it looks a little bit different. And it's at least, okay, this is how I think the year is going to end. And then when I do my first ranking in like the first week of October, I don't even look at that. I just go by what have I seen on the field. And personally, I think that would be, if you're going to have a preseason poll, you should try to have it be maybe a forecast or just guess how you think things are going to go at the end of the year.
But again, there's always bias involved.
Well, there are, but at least if you're doing it that way and you think how it's going to end, then at least when your actual rankings come out, whether it's week 4, week 5, whatever, in theory, it should be based on just how they've played. Maybe it won't be. Maybe biases are inherent and people can't get past them, and that is I guess, a real issue. But anyway, let's take a look at the AP poll, top 25. Not a whole lot of surprises, I don't think, in the top 10, although I did see a stat 22 years in a row, one of the preseason top 10 teams has not finished ranked at all. So, of that top 10, who do you think is the most likely candidate? I have mine to be unranked at the end of the season of the top 10.
Give me 1 second. Let me look at this thing again. Alabama's got a tough schedule. I'd probably say Miami, though.
That was going to be my bet just because I know they got Carson Beck and they made some moves in the portal, but I still think they're behind Clemson. And I'm not sure that the ACC is a strong enough league or has a strong enough perception to get two teams in if they're going to have two losses. And I actually think Miami could lose to SMU, could lose to Georgia Tech. So I don't think that it's any given that Miami is going to finish the year. I don't think they'll finish in the top 10. Now, unranked, I don't know if they'll be unranked. That would be like an 8-4 year, and I'm not sure they'll go 8-4. But I suppose anything can happen. The
Oh, are you
other
saying?
choice would be
Are you saying?
LSU,
Wait, hold on.
just because LSU
Hold
has
on.
a tough schedule.
Are you saying unranked? Or are you saying out of the top 10?
Unranked.
Oh,
Like last year, Florida State was in the preseason top 10, finished unranked. 22 years in a row,
yeah.
there has been a team in the top 10 that has ended up unranked, period.
You know, do we know how good Arch Manning is?
We don't.
I mean, to run the board as a consensus preseason number one. I know they probably got 5 stars everywhere on the field, but and we don't even know who the Ohio State quarterback is. I mean, that's the fascinating thing about this game coming up, in my opinion. By the way, the other thing we should discuss is Texas is now the first preseason number one to start its season opener as the underdog, which I think is really interesting.
Yes, that is interesting. And it probably could have happened in the like 50s and 60s, but really with gambling not being as prevalent, not everyone knowing the lines, this
Yeah.
is certainly the first documented one. And that is kind of fascinating. You would think that the number one would be the favorite, but it just
Well,
shows you how close the top 2 or 3 teams are in the perception of the voters and in terms of Vegas. I think Ohio State's like a 2.5 or 3 point favorite.
uh, I don't have the coaches poll, or actually, I do have the coaches poll. The I'm always interested in first place votes, and
Yes.
it was widespread. It was pretty close in the coaches poll, but I think it was even closer in the uh, AP poll. So you had Texas getting 25 first place votes, 28 in the coaches poll. Penn State getting 23 in the writers poll, but only 14 in the coaches. And it was kind of flipped in the with Ohio State. So you had 11 first place votes for Ohio State in the writers poll, and then 20 in the coaches. Clemson got 4 in the writers poll and 2 in the coaches poll. So the biggest flip is Ohio State and Penn State.
Yep.
And I'm curious, we're writers. We've been writers for most of our professional life, and I think the AP. I mean, like when ESPN comes out and broadcasts that game, they're going to tout it as 1 versus 3, whereas in the coaches it's 1 versus 2. So
1 versus 2, right?
whatever you want, But I think, when ESPN says when they tout it, it's going to be 1 versus 3. So I mean, I think there's a consensus that there's a little more prestige to the AP poll, and the
I
coaches
think there
poll
is.
has long been known as the sports information director poll, not really the
Yeah,
coaches poll.
right.
But I'm wondering, if you had to guess, how many coaches do you think actually vote in the coaches poll, as opposed to the SID?
I think
person?
early in the year, I think a lot of them do. I think once the season gets going and they get so busy, then I do think they kind of turn it over to someone else in the football office or the sports information director. I can see almost all of the coaches voting at least in the preseason poll.
Yeah, I vote in the Division III college football poll, d3football.com. They do great work over there. That's the best source for Division III football. And I gotta believe the only reason for the flip between Ohio State and Penn State between the two polls is Drew Aller is back. Is it just be a 3-year starter now? And there's so much question marks right now with Ohio State's quarterback position. They still haven't named the starter, correct?
That's probably going to happen sometime, maybe by the end of this week. But yes, they have not officially named the starter.
And I've got friends that, family members texting me, oh, this is such disrespect to Ohio State, and I'm like thinking, relax. You have the opportunity of a lifetime sitting right in front of you if you win this game on August 30th. Don't worry about these. But again, I think it's just interesting to look at the way it really it's. I thought it'd be closer than that. It's a pretty big
Well,
flip.
And it's interesting, maybe the media and the coaches obviously value different things. I mean, when we talk to coaches, we may think such and such was a really important play in the game, and the coach will say, "Oh no, you know what? It was actually this." So
Right.
so I think that that is one of the reasons for the discrepancy. Looking at this, a couple of teams that strike me as maybe being a little bit high. I know that Illinois had a 10-2 season last year, and Brett Bielema did a really nice job. But I'm not sure that 12. I mean, they've got a tougher schedule this year. Now they do get Ohio State at home, but it's not a super easy schedule. And I don't know that 1 year of being 10 wins merits being number 12. I could see Illinois maybe struggling. Florida's got a really tough schedule. Oklahoma has a really tough schedule. And Indiana, they're another team like Illinois. Kurt Signetti obviously did great things last year. Um, but is Indiana a 1 year wonder, or does he kind of have them going now? Because I think the Big Ten is going to be a little bit better this season than maybe people think it is.
Well, again, Illinois right now, 12. Arizona State, they lose Scadaboo. That's going to be a big loss, but they return their quarterback. This is, again, an example that I was talking about earlier. This is all based off last year. And you want a difficult job voting. Do a preseason Division III top 25 poll. That is not easy. But my philosophy when I do these polls is I try to gather as much information as I can, and I put a huge premium on. I don't look at schedules, and I know you're a big proponent of. Oh, look, they have the pathway to this and that, and I'm about who do you got coming back, and it's hard to when you got a guy like Drew Aller, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he does have talent, and he does seem to have a. I think he's got a grasp of that offense, and I think he's going to be able to do some good things. And I want to talk about their schedule coming up because we kind of hammered on Indiana's schedule last time we talked. When you got a 2-year returner coming back, it's and with the questions with Ohio State and their quarterback situation, I don't have a huge problem with them being number 2 ahead of Ohio State because again, you're just basing this off the best information you have possible.
Right.
But with Illinois and like say Arizona State, this is all based off last season. That's it. But they're not the same teams.
It is, and that's why I think Boise's in because I mean Boise lost Ashton Ginty, obviously,
Right?
and I mean they'll be good, but I mean they got to play Notre Dame. So
well,
are
SMU's
they the
one in there? They're in the top 20. That's based off
yeah?
last season.
They're in there. Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss lost Jackson Dart and lost some guys off the defense, and they're 21.
Yep.
So I don't know. One team that I'm actually much higher on than the AP is Texas Tech. I have them number 8, just because they did go all in the portal. Obviously, they've got a lot of NIL money. Maybe I end up like falling on my face on that one, but it's like I just think that the Big 12 I think is wide open between them and Arizona State and Baylor, and I just think they may have the most talented roster. But this is the type of stuff that's going to, I guess, take people. It's basically just a little over a week until the kickoff of Iowa State and Kansas State on the 23rd. So this is what's going to have people talking for
what's weird?
I guess the next 10 days.
I always like looking at others receiving votes.
Yeah.
The biggest anomaly I think in this between the two polls is that BYU's quarterback, he was having all those issues, and he transferred. Where did he transfer to?
Retzlaff went to Tulane.
Okay, so that happened in the last week. That happened in between the coaches and the writers' poll, right?
Yeah, about 10 days ago.
So what's strange is that BYU is the first team receiving votes, which means they would come in at number 26 in the AP poll, which came yesterday. So right now they have an issue with the quarterback situation over there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They're ranked 26th, and then this coaches poll that came out a week ago didn't have them anywhere. Or I'm sorry, they had them at 23. And I'm like, I'm curious. How do you feel about BYU going forward? Do you think they're a team?
I do think that had Retzlaff been in, a lot of the preseason stuff I saw had them in the teens, like 16, 17, 18.
Right.
And I do think he makes a bit of a difference. They do have a couple of transfer guys who have played, but I don't think they're as good as he is. Personally, I'm selling a little bit on BYU. Early in the spring, like late in the spring, I had them in the 18, 19 range. I think Retzlaff was good enough that they may slip to like 8-4, which would put them just outside the top 25 for me. 26, 27 sounds about right. It's interesting BYU and Utah are right next to each other since they
Yep.
have one of the more bitter rivalries in college football, and they're going to play each other early in the season.
What about
And
the?
if you look, Toledo's in there too.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Liberty's in there.
The others receiving
James,
votes is always where the group of five programs that are kind of people don't respect a whole lot. They're putting them in
Tulane,
there. I mean, James Madison,
James
Memphis.
Madison.
It's the types of folks: Liberty, Louisiana, Army, Navy.
You think Toledo can run the table?
They do play Kentucky in the non-league, but they did beat Mississippi State last season. I mean, they beat them badly. So if they beat Kentucky, that's really their toughest non-league game. They could run the MAC. Now the MAC is difficult to get through unscathed just because
Yeah,
Ohio U is the defending champ and they have a lot of guys back. Miami is always tough. Bowling Green's emerging with Eddie George. So it's not impossible, but I think if they were 12-0, they would be right in the thick of things for that group of five berth. The question is a 12-0 Toledo with a win over Kentucky more appealing to the voters than an 11-1 Boise State whose only loss was to Notre Dame?
I know. But Boise's always going to get the benefit of the doubt. We always talk about this kind of bias stuff, and because they've got the experience of being in these kind of games and these
Right.
moments and these, you know, they've been able to rise to the occasion, whereas the MAC just has never really kind of broken through. There's the Ben Roethlisberger years, and I remember Northern Illinois made the Orange Bowl, and I remember
Yep.
what a stink that created. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit was like, screaming bloody murder, the audacity of putting a MAC school, and I think the MAC is not a great football conference, only comparing it to the top four leagues.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's when you do it that way. But my thing would be if they would ever get an undefeated team. I mean, look, I think if a 12-0 Toledo team is there, I I think they're going to get it, and that would be a really interesting dynamic how that would play out.
It would. They'd probably get the 12 seed, no better than the 11.
Oh yeah, but I'm just wondering what the because when Indiana and SMU got in, you're talking about teams from big leagues, and there was still some criticism like, should they have gotten in over Alabama? And if the Toledo team got in ahead of, say, a 9-3, 10-2 Tennessee, or
Right.
just throwing it out there, Florida, 10-2 Florida, that would be. I would love to see the reaction nationwide from that.
Oh, it would be interesting. I will say the committee looks a lot at the number in the left-hand column,
Yeah.
and they will think that 12 is better than 10 almost every day of the week. Even if you take the schedules into account,
Right.
they have shown that if you win 11 games, they're going to value you pretty highly.
Could you see a scenario like you mentioned, 11-1 Boise, like ranked 11th, and then Toledo on the board, let's say maybe a 9-3, 10-2 SEC team? Do you think there's any chance they would take Toledo over that SEC team?
I don't think so now. If it was a 9-3 ACC or Big 12, then I think you'd probably have a really interesting debate.
It's interesting you say that.
South
Hold on,
Carolina or Oklahoma.
Stop. It's interesting you say that because what did I just talk about when we started this show? Bias. I think that's SEC bias, and it would be Big Ten bias if it was a Big Ten school in there. I think there's no question about it.
Well, there is bias, but I also think if you look at just the things, whether it's SP plus, whether it is FPI, whether it's the myriad power rankings out there, the SEC and Big Ten top to bottom are better. Now, I don't think they're worlds better. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's acting like the SEC and Big Ten are like 10 points better than those two leagues, anyone on a neutral field. And that's not true. But I do think the ACC and Big 12 are pretty good. I just don't know that and you're right, the voting comes down to perception. Even though they have the data in front of them, it's going to come down to perception. So going into the year, the perception is the Big 12 and the ACC are a step below the SEC and the Big 10. And so I do think it would be an interesting debate with a 12-0 Toledo against, say, a 9-3 Kansas State or a 9-3 Miami or Georgia Tech or something
Wait,
like that.
what about 12-0? This is a good one. 12-0, the last spot on the board. 12-0 Toledo versus, say, 10-2 Michigan. That would be. You're talking about
If Michigan
that.
has beaten, say, Oklahoma and Ohio State, then Michigan would get in. But if
Oh,
Michigan
yeah.
lost to both of those teams and their best win was, say, Nebraska, then I think it would be really interesting.
See, you ripped the new system, playoff system, and this would create such great, not controversy, but just talk
It would
around
create a lot
the
of
water
talking
cooler.
points, certainly.
This will be a week's worth of content for ESPN and CBS and all these other places. I mean, people would just be losing their minds. It'd be great.
They certainly might. Anyway, so it will be interesting to see how much these teams move after 2 or 3 weeks, if
Hey, I
maybe a
want
couple of
before
them.
we move on to the next topic,
Uh-huh.
I do want to mention about people are complaining about Ohio State dropping to 3 and Penn State moving up to the 2 spot. My theory on this is Penn State better not mess around in the non-conference. And what a joke this schedule is.
Oh, yeah.
There better be some outcry, and the college football committee, they better hold this team accountable, and the other teams, not just Penn State, but we know last year the Bowling Green really tested them. I think that was within a touchdown, wasn't that game?
They did, and they also tested Texas A&M the next week, too. Yeah, that was a touchdown game.
And Bowling Green was what they won 7 games, 8 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like they rolled through the back, and so let's go through this. Nevada at home. I don't know what Nevada's all about. I don't really care. Florida International. Okay. Villanova. I mean, are you kidding?
Villanova.
With the schedule, are you
Keep the
kidding?
money in Pennsylvania.
So they better destroy these teams, and I mean destroy these teams. And and I'm going to give you an example. Back almost 30 years ago, Ohio State in 1996 played the non-conference schedule, and you're going to remember this well.
Mm-hmm.
Rice, 70-7.
Yep.
Pitt from the Big East, 72-0.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Penn State's got to throw 70 on the board in back-to-back weeks, but when you do that, do you prove that you're worthy? I don't know. I don't know what we learned from those 2 games, but here's what Ohio State did the next 2 weeks. At number 5, Notre Dame, went on the road and won 29-16. And then the next week, first Big Ten game of the year against number 4, Penn State, and just whacked the floor with them 38-7.
Yep.
So if you're going to go out and do that, just, cream puff, university, you better not screw around with these teams, and you better show the nation something, because even if Ohio State wins that game, they're going to obviously jump Penn State. They're going to be number 1 in the country. But Penn State, you better show something to the country in these 3 games, because if you're going out and losing a quarter, or maybe it's close at halftime, you better hold that team accountable. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I think that as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, people are going to say you should be beating these teams 50-0, whatever. If you're doing that, then you are staying the course. But you're right. If they struggle, there's going to be questions, and people are going to say, okay, overrated. And then when the Big Ten season starts, I mean, they got Oregon early in
Yeah.
September, so that's going to be, I think, pretty interesting. So the poll stuff is finished up. So a couple of other things that are in the headlines. A couple of guys who want to get back into coaching include Jimbo Fisher has said he's an analyst for the ACC network now, and obviously he won a national championship at Florida State. He was at Texas A&M, and it didn't end well. Fired before the season ended with a huge contract buyout, which Ross Bjork, who's now the Ohio State athletic director, signed off on. Just kind of a word of warning for folks there, but he's talked about wanting to get back into coaching. Says he's 59 years old, in great health, and it's something that he would want to do. Do you think there is a team out there, because he does have a good resume, that would look at him, or do you think they would take pause and say, man, that went really bad at A&M? The last year at Florida State didn't go well. Do you take a chance with a guy like Jimbo, knowing that he can do it, but it may go sour in like 4 or 5 years? Do you take a chance?
Yeah. I'm going to say I don't think this is that big of a gamble. I mean, when you say it went horribly at A&M at the end, I mean, I
He was
guess
5-7 and 6-4. His last
right.
two seasons were five
No,
and seven and six
I'm
and
saying
four.
in optics, I think they didn't perform up to maybe where many people thought A&M should be, but I don't think there was a ton of controversy surrounding him. So, in terms of a gamble, like when I think of a gamble, I'm like, what's this guy going to do to your program? Is there going to be problems? Is there going to be arrests? And I didn't see that there that much.
Yeah, off-field stuff. It wouldn't be a worry with
No,
off-field stuff. You're right about that.
and we're going to talk about the next guy on that list who wants to get back. But I think in terms of when he left there wasn't there like a bunch of talk about payola, and this was before NIL, right? Like, or
No, it
was
was
this
right. It was the first year of it, and they had
okay?
that huge roster, and they underperformed mightily.
Right. So they know how to handle money, or he knows how to handle the money aspect of it
Mm-hmm.
all in egos. But again, they never, they never had the quarterback. They never could find the quarterback when they were at A&M.
Right.
So
And he's a quarterback guru. He's supposedly a play
yeah,
caller and a quarterback guy.
they had that Trask guy, and just they really could never, find that marquee guy. And I mean, that's the name of the game in college football, and all levels of football.
Yeah, it
My
is.
son's high school football team, they're starting a freshman. And he's like, how do you think we're going to do? Well, tell me how this kid does at the end of the year, and I'll tell you how good you're going to be.
Right.
So I'm surprised he's not back in the game yet, to be honest with you. It's been, what, 3 years now? 4 years?
2020, last game of 2023. So it's really only been
Oh,
out like a full year.
God, it doesn't seem longer than that.
It does, but if you
Yeah.
remember, Mike Elko last year was Mike Elko's first year. There was an interim for the bowl
Wow, you're
for
right.
the last game, and Elko's first year was last year.
I mean,
It
yeah,
seems longer. You're right.
I would jump all over Jimbo Fisher. Absolutely. I would have no hesitation. I mean, what's your opinion on this?
I think he knows what he's doing, and if he could certainly assemble a good staff because he's had good staffs before. Again, he's got the pedigree with the national championship with Jameis Winston at Florida State, and he can bring in good players. It's just a question of, it seems that after about year 3 or year 4, he becomes disinterested in recruiting. And as we know in college football, I mean, it's maybe not quite as big a deal now with the portal, but you still have to recruit to be able to cycle through talent. So maybe it's a little less of an issue, but if he decided to stop recruiting again, then how quickly do you cut bait? But I think he could go somewhere and be pretty successful just because he's done it at a couple of spots.
Where do you think? Do you think he would? Do you think
I
he would
think he'd
consider?
want to go to a major, like, I don't think he wants to go to a G5. I could
That's
see him
what I think.
landing
A
maybe in
Power
the
Four.
ACC somewhere, SEC.
What do you, if C. Thomas Hall at Florida State has another bad year?
Could he go back? Maybe he could go back.
Would he go back? Would they consider him back at
I don't
Florida
know
State?
how acrimonious that was. I mean, he said he wanted to end his career at Florida State, but yet Texas A&M came up with all this money and he decided to leave. So if it was just a money issue, then maybe he comes back. But if he burns some bridges, then it might be
Yeah.
it
Well,
might be
look,
a little more difficult.
I don't think Rich Rod left West Virginia on the best terms, kind of flying over to Michigan. I think there are a lot of upset people, and time heals all wounds.
There were, but he's from there, and that's a little. I mean, it's sort of the same. You're right. I guess time does maybe heal some wounds, so that will be something to watch. Mike Norvell may want to win like 8 or 9 games this year just to
Yeah.
kind of keep his job security. The other guy who's talked about it is none other than John Gruden. Obviously, he has been a college assistant before, but he cut his teeth in the NFL with the Raiders and Tampa Bay. He's had his quarterback school program on ESPN, which is actually kind of fascinating to take some of these prospects and make them go to the whiteboard and see what their leadership style is.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that that kind of style, he said, I'm not going to bullshit people. I'm going to tell you how it is. You think that works in this day and age? Can he be hard on players and they won't tune out? Do you think he has that kind of respect that if he does criticize them, they're going to take it, or they're going to say, you can't talk to me that way because it's a different era?
Oh, I think that's a non-issue. I mean, I think all these coaches are, I think behind the scenes, they're all, criticism comes with the game at all levels of football, and really all levels of sports, I think. Um, Gruden to me is interesting in a couple of respects. I think he's a kind of an oddball, and
Yes.
you know he's going to have an issue dealing with his past. I mean, he got
Right.
blackballed from the NFL from all these quote racist comments he was making in emails, and it was pretty bad. It was pretty the terminology was
Right.
something
Oh, yeah, it was.
that's something he's going to have to address. But I think in this age of college football with NIL money, dealing with the divas and the big money, I mean, with all the experience in the NFL, he knows how to deal with these kind of guys and the money aspect. So I think, and he's a winner, right? He won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Um, he, and that's going to carry a lot of weight. And listen, there is a team out there, a college football program that will take a shot at this guy, and they'll hire the best marketing department to skirt around these issues and try to gloss them over. But again, I don't know. I don't know if it stick with. I don't know how it would do in the NFL. We have guys. I mean, I guess one of the biggest examples was Bill Walsh leaving the 49ers and then going back
Right.
to Stanford. And that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a cool story. And Bill Walsh was like, I mean, he was probably more of a hard ass than people gave him credit for, like that scholarly professor
Right.
type. But I think he was a tough ass in a lot of respects too. And he had success, not huge success, but success. Can Gruden go somewhere, maybe a group of Power 5 or Power 4 program, and maybe win a national championship or contend?
It'll
Maybe,
be interesting.
maybe I don't know.
There's one spot I think he could end up where it might be a good fit for him. He's got that hard nosed,
Dayton?
kind of ornery sort of thing. Arkansas, Sam
What about
Pittman could be on borrowed time this year. If he goes to Arkansas and does that woo pig suey and kind of paints himself as a Southern guy, even though he's from Ohio, I think that, I mean, Arkansas got John Calipari in basketball. So what kind of splash do you think John Gruden could make on the football side of things? I'm sure he would get a good staff who understands the dynamics of college now with the NIL and all that other stuff. I mean, he's been in NFL front offices, GMs. Teams are hiring GMs now. So he would know how to run the operation. So I think Arkansas would be a really interesting fit because I think he wants to go to a power league to prove that he can do it. I mean, he could go to a group of 5 team like Dan Mullen did from the TV booth, but I think Gruden wants to really challenge himself and go to an upper echelon conference. So I think that would be really interesting to see how that transpires. I think that's that's another one that at the end of the year, when some of the pink slips are being given, you can bet that some athletic departments that are flush with cash are probably going to reach out to him and say, "How interested are you?" So
What about
definitely,
what about going back to Ohio somewhere? Like, do you think he would ever consider a place like Dayton, a smaller school?
I don't know. I mean, if he likes football that's pure, then yeah, he might go to that level, like a Dayton, Youngstown, and any place if they needed a coach, he
A
might.
MAC
But I
school?
just think I think he likes being in the spotlight. I mean, he's kind of a performer. If you've watched that quarterback show, he's kind of a performer. He says stuff that's outlandish, and he doesn't mind the cameras trailing him around. So
That's what I'm
he
saying.
he could.
I think it's a shtick. I don't know how. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know how genuine this guy is to be honest.
I know when he was in NFL, he apparently used to sleep in the office, and he like had like 18 cups of coffee and all that. So maybe he's just naturally wired that way. I have no
Yeah,
idea, but
maybe.
it's very interesting. Um, Now we will get to the point of the show that is always close to
The
Mark's
best.
heart, where we take a look off of the game itself and go to some of the pop culture sort of stuff, but we are keeping it with college football. We're going to take a look today at what we think are five quintessential uh, films that deal with college football. They could be cinematic releases, they could be documentaries, they could be whatever. And I'm actually going to go first, and I rank them. I know that you said that you don't really rank movies. I do. I actually think that the best college football film, a lot of people are probably going to agree with this. Some will disagree because of the liberties they took with the story. I just think Rudy is a great movie. I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan, but the fact they filmed it on the campus, that they filmed a lot of it during the halftime of an actual game, um, and the story itself is an uplifting story. Even if you read about what kind of person Daniel Rudiger is uh, in real life, it ends up being a very heartwarming story. Yeah, Hollywoodized, of course, but you know what? It's hard for me to hate anything with Ned Beatty in it. So I just think Rudy is a great, great film, and it would be my number one. I know it was on your list as well.
Well, don't forget Chelsea Ross,
Him too.
who's been in like he's kind of one of those hidden Hollywood figures. He's been in Rudy, Major League,
Major League.
and
Yep.
Hoosiers.
Yep.
I mean, that's like three of the best sports movies of all time. No, I would say Rudy, if I had to like put like a number on these things, would probably be at the top of the list. But you know, the thing is about Rudy is that what doesn't irritate me, but it's like it's a great theatrical film with really solid actors. It's got a good cast. Um, good like you mentioned, the scenery is like that those Golden Dome,
Mm-hmm.
images and
Well,
uh,
even the music. I thought the music was
oh,
great.
fantastic. The guy from The Exorcist, the priest, Damien
Yeah.
Karras. I don't even know the name of the actor, but he plays.
Robert Prosky.
Okay, there you go. He plays Arab Parseesian. He was fantastic in that role, and but again, Rudy, like great story, but like who's Rudy? Like he's just a guy walking. My thing is, I love stories about guys who impacted college football and the historical aspect of the game, and I don't know why they don't make more movies like this. But The Express, which isn't, and hey, Chelsea Ross also in The Express. He
Ah,
plays the
there we
AD.
go.
He plays the
Oh,
AD at Syracuse.
He was the AD that hired Ben Schwartzwalder, I think.
Right, played by Dennis
Yeah.
Quaid, who's obviously the A-list actor, and that he's not an A-list actor, but he's in the film. He's the A-list actor.
Right.
And the guy who plays, obviously we're talking about Ernie Davis, the first African American to win the Heisman Trophy. You talk about historical, importance of college football,
Yes.
and that movie is not a, Oscar worthy film, but I think it does a nice job portraying the time. A lot of uh, racial overtones in that movie. You're talking early '60s, them playing in the Sugar Bowl against Texas, and
Uh-huh.
that was interesting. A lot of games when they had to go down south. I think West Virginia was a game where it wasn't very pretty, and just the stuff he and his black teammates had to deal with at the time. Uh, I thought they captured that whole era very nice, and I think it's an underrated college football film that's way up high on my list.
Well, I agree. And for people who don't know the history of Syracuse running backs, I mean, you had Jim Brown,
Oh
you
yeah,
had Ernie Davis, you had Floyd Little, you had
both of
Larry
them.
Zonka, you had Jim Nance, you had all this lineage of like really great college running backs at
Right.
Syracuse. People are going, what are they doing? So another one that I really like, and I actually just saw again over the weekend, if you want impact on college football, at least on an area, we are Marshall. Now, I know
Yeah.
that sometimes it's hard to believe Matthew McConaughey as a coach just because of some of the roles he's played since, but that really impacted the community of Huntington, West Virginia when that plane went down. I mean, they shut down the program
Sure.
and coming back basically with guys who were like also rans, afterthoughts, walk-ons, stuff like that. And to get Marshall back to where they were and just how proud they were to represent the school, I thought that was a pretty good depiction of just how grief-stricken the area was and how much the revitalization of the football program brought joy back to the area.
You know, the third film on my list is I still all these years later, I don't know if this movie is more of a spoof of college football, or I think they were going for a serious take, but some of the stuff is so outlandish in this movie, and I'm talking about The Program, which I believe came out early 90s, maybe 92 or 93
I
somewhere.
think 93.
And James Caan plays the head coach. Just a fictional story, obviously, somewhere like I think maybe ACC or SEC land. And the interesting thing about that film is that all these schools were like, I do think they played South Carolina. I don't know why they gave them authorization to play them. And the last game of the year, I think it was was it a bowl game? They played Michigan for some
I think it
reason.
was. It was funny. Their school was a fictional school, but I think they played real schools.
Right. It was like, what's going on? And then all this stuff about like the steroid use and uh, alcoholism. The quarterback was an alcoholic, and just all this crazy nonsense, like violence around the school. And the really
Well,
only thing they didn't have
the
was like
the funny
Uzi.
thing was, a lot of this stuff did go. I mean, Omar Epps has to carry a football with him around campus because he fumbled. I know, like, I have heard of Ohio State guys and other guys in programs when they couldn't hold on to the ball, coaches wanted them taking it to class, and they would tell teammates, if you see them on campus, try to knock the ball out of their hands.
Well,
So
there's a scene
that
about
stuff
that.
happened. Steroids happened,
Oh no, I'm not saying this stuff didn't happen. I'm saying
but they went over the top with it.
it was so crazy. Like the guy who played the nutty defensive end, Lattimore. I mean, like
Yes,
the roided out freak. I mean,
yes.
all this stuff, and um, it's just a fun romp through. I mean, like it's like a time capsule of that era. It really captures, I think, college football at that time, um, in a general sense. I'm not saying in a literal sense. Just uh, all the goofiness that was going around maybe during that time, and
Oh,
um,
yeah.
it's just a fun romp through. Like there wasn't a movie made since or before or since, I think, about college football, and it'd be really interesting to see a take on the current state of college football. There was a movie that came out, I think, 3 or 4 years ago called National Champions or National Championship
Yes. Yeah.
with
JT, J,
J.K.
the guy
Simmons.
from the Farmers Insurance.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons plays the
Yeah,
coach,
J.K. Simmons.
and there's a kid who is a star quarterback of this like #1 ranked team, and he's holding out to play in the game, the big game. I think he was dealing with an injury, but he wanted money, and
Right.
it didn't hit the mark. But they made a good attempt at trying to address some of the issues of the time. But I still think there could
Definitely.
be I think in better hands there could be a better attempt made at what's going on in today's world.
One of the issues for me with the program is I never bought Craig Sheffer as a big time quarterback, but that's just me. Um, in the documentary film category that was not in the theaters, of course, the ESPN 30 for 30 series, many of theirs have focused on college football. One of the ones I loved was one of the early ones. I hate the program, but the way that Miami came to prominence, I really like watching the U. I mean, their guys were just so brash. I mean, Melvin Bratton and Alonzo Highsmith and all those guys, and Howard Schnellenberger having an idea that this could be a destination place for football
Yeah.
players after they had maybe 2 good seasons in their entire life. And he had them playing for and beating a blue blood in Nebraska to win a national championship. And then the ball just really started rolling. But some of the stuff they talked about, going to clubs and getting in when the Dolphins had to wait in line because the Hurricanes were
Yep.
actually the team in Miami. Some of the stories they told were just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have 2 picks, so I'll steam ahead and go through my 4th and 5th pick on this list. The first is it's called Brian and the Boz. It's you talk about time capsule and a guy so far ahead of his time. I mean, imagine this guy in the NIL era, what he would be worth.
Yeah.
He would easily be top 5. I mean, if I had a list, and I think this is a topic we should maybe dive into more during the season. I mean, you got to
He would
include
be top 5, definitely.
Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, Doug Flutie, the Boz. I mean, all those guys from the 80s, I mean, would just be raking in so much cash. And this guy was, you talk about our outlandish, he might have been the Lattimore of real college football.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it wasn't just the fact that he was so outlandish. He was so good. You know, he was such a nasty linebacker. I mean, you talk about the era of Chris Spielman, Cornelius Bennett,
Bill Romanowski, guys like that.
Derek, the guy
Derek Brooks.
Derek Brooks, and who was the other, the Alabama linebacker who went and played for the Chiefs, who died in a car crash? Derek Thomas.
Yeah.
Chris Spielman. You're talking about an era of just awesome linebackers, and he probably was the best of the bunch. And
he has an award named after. I mean, he was the first winner, I think, of the Butkus Award. I think he was the first one. He might have been, maybe he was second, but he was one of the really early winners of the Butkus Award.
I think he won the first 2 Butkus, but
yeah.
Don't quote me on that. But it's a very introspective film because it chronicles from where he was to where he became. I think this was filmed like almost 10 years ago, and he does it with like a road trip with his son, and he talks about all the mistakes he made, and it was very cool to watch. And it really, I mean, honestly inspired my son to be a linebacker. I mean, you know, I think he had fun with the whole persona of the Boz, but I think he really was inspired and you know, to be great, try to be great, you know, as best as he could, because this guy put it on the line, and it's documented in the film. Like, these guys talk about, Tony Casillo says this line, like, he might have been the biggest and the baddest linebacker ever in college football, but he was probably the biggest jerk too. Yep. And you don't want to aspire to be that, but you want to aspire to be one of the greatest of all time, and he certainly was. And I think this film truly encapsulates that whole era in him.
Well, and now he is have a bit of a career resurgence as the sheriff in the Dr. Pepper commercials.
Absolutely. So, and then the last film I'll just hit on real quick. I mean, Catholics versus Convicts. I mean, another film that encapsulates a time capsule.
If that title doesn't say it all.
Oh, and then, you know, for people that are maybe watching or of the young generation, just Google Catholics versus Convicts T-shirt. That in itself created such a frenzy with this game. And for people who have never seen this or don't know what we're talking about the 1988 Notre Dame versus Miami game. Miami was the defending national champion. They were the number 1 team in the country. Notre Dame was in year 3 with Lou Holtz. They were on the verge of getting there, and this game catapulted them to a national.
In South Bend, it's one of the few that lived up to the hype of these great games that always get the hype.
To me, and again, this might be another topic we had. The 2 most instrumental, memorable games of my lifetime as a kid growing up, falling in love with college football: the 1984 Orange Bowl, Miami, Bernie Kosar against number 1 Nebraska, and this game. And it's no coincidence, at least in my book, both games ended
same score,
exact same score, and just the drama, and the players and the coaches, and it's just had everything you could ever want. Huge recommend for this Catholics versus Convicts. This is about an hour long, maybe 15 minutes with Maybe it was an hour and a half. I can't remember. It almost could have been a little longer.
It was a little bit longer because they did go into the whole T-shirt angle about how it
Yeah,
was illegal and the school was shutting
right.
it down.
There was so much juice to this game. It was just off the charts. You just don't. To me, I don't think you just. I'm not saying these kind of games and moments won't ever happen again, but I just think it's gonna be really hard to replicate because honestly, they went down some alleys that were a little bit risque.
Yeah, they did. And the
I don't
funny
think
thing
this would not
is
fly in today's culture. I think.
no, they wouldn't. And I think that the interesting part is just how big a game it was. I really can't stand either school. And I was
Right.
like glued to the TV like all day. Notre
Oh,
Dame and Miami are on my list of teams I really, really don't like. But it
yeah.
was just great theater. And Musburger at that point was calling all of the big
Yep.
games.
Yep.
And when Musburger comes on the TV and there's the scuffle before the game, it really got going. The last one I like, if you've never seen it, it's really good. Greater, it's about Brandon Burlsworth, a walk-on at Arkansas, who was just a kid who dreamed of playing for the Razorbacks, was never given a whole lot of support as a kid, except from his mother, who told him to go after his dreams. The rest of his family were saying, Brandon, you got to quit dreaming. This is never. And he wore these big spectacles because he had bad vision. And they said, how is a kid who is overweight, not really in shape, and wears glasses ever going to be a standout lineman? And he ended up being an All American. He has an award named after him now, the Brandon Burlsworth
Yep.
Award, that goes to the best walk on in college football. He unfortunately died before he ever got to play in the NFL in an automobile accident. He was going to play for the Colts, and he ended up having an automobile accident and died in his early 20s. But it's really an interesting, a good movie, and it's not super Hollywoodized. There are some aspects of it that are, it's not nearly as much so as Rudy, but it's really an interesting film. And if you don't know his backstory, I would advise watching that one.
Sounds good.
So anyway, that is what we have got for today. And I think it's been an interesting show. Obviously, we will hit on some of the other topics that we just sort of touched on today, maybe on some later shows. If you want to keep up on what's going on, certainly hit the notifications and hit the like or subscribe button so that you will not be left out of the loop when we have new content. So, Mark, again, thanks again for the lively debate. And we are just about a little over a week away from college football starting. So I will be back on Friday, and Mark will be back again next week. So until then, folks, take it easy.
Thank you.